researchers have repeatedly said this. The worst time in the day to communicate, to persuade people is about 30 to 60 minutes after lunch, which is right about now. So if I can just ask you to stand up and say hello to the person next to you, say something really nice about them, even though if you have to lie. Just stretch your arms a bit, yep. That's okay, don't get carried away, you can sit down now. Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, please be seated. Now you are wide awake. So can I start by acknowledging the organizer for today, Brendan and Ethel. Nothing happened by chance, and they put a lot of effort into this. So just put your hands together for Brendan and Ethel. I also want to acknowledge my business partner, Professor Robert Lee. He's the technical guy behind all this. I'm just the talker. All right, so you'll be hearing from Robert in a few minutes. I have a very funny habit. So I used to work for the government. And I get sent around the countryside and to do things for the government. And I get to go to small towns that I usually don't go to, all right? Regional Victoria and particularly in Queensland. So there's one thing that I always want to do when I go to a small town after I've done my business is to go and speak to the locals. So where would you go, say in regional Queensland, a small town of maybe 2,000, 4,000 people, where would you go to talk to the locals? The pubs. Absolutely the pub. There's two problems. Number one, I don't like to drink. And secondly, after a long day of work, the last things I want to do is to listen to other people's problems. There is another place, though, that I can go and speak to the local, where I don't have to drink, and they don't tell me the problems. Where would that be? I love to go to visit cemetery. Yes. Now, in your mind, a cemetery looks like this. No, I don't go there at night. I'm not that stupid, right? This is what a cemetery usually looks like. I love visiting cemetery because it tells you so much about the story in that place, about the people, about the town, about the culture. In the past, when you go to a cemetery, you see the big tombstone. Here lies Michael Choi. Well, hopefully not too soon. About where he was born, a little bit of history about him, and when he died, missed by everybody else except his family. No, it's only joking. But in recent times, the tombstone from that size getting smaller and smaller and smaller, it become a little plaque. Measure 150 millimeters by about 200. And on it, it's your name, when you're born, when you're dead, and at best, missed by a couple of people that close to you. Am I correct? That's your life. That's your life. Summarized in less than 30 words, is that all there is to be told? Really? Really? I used to work a lot in the multicultural community. We have over 150 cultures in Queensland alone, 160 languages. And let me tell you, whether you're white or brown or blue or pink, whether you are a Christian or Muslim or Buddhist or atheist, whether you are heterosexual, bisexual, multisexual, I don't care who you are, every single person has a story to tell. Am I right? Do you agree that every one of you has a story to tell? And it is so true. Let me ask you this question, though. Who is the best person to tell this story? Would that be your parent? Well, perhaps they were when you were a little baby boy or baby girl. But at some point in time, you left home. Somebody else know you better. Maybe it's your spouse, your boyfriend, your girlfriend. When you get a bit older, maybe somebody else knows you better. Nobody knows you better than one person, and that person is yourself. You. You know yourself better. In fact, people only know you from the outside. You know about yourself inside, your feelings that you never told anybody. Maybe it's a part of your history that you don't dare to say to anybody. Maybe something happened to you when we were young. Maybe it's a trauma. Maybe something really happy you want to share, but there's no one there at the time that's worthy of your story. So what do we do? We want our story to be told. But who usually tell people about your story? Who usually does the telling? Anybody else but you. You go and Google yourself, right? Even if you're a famous person, you got about 2,000 hits. 1,999 of them would be by other people about you. Am I correct? Very rarely there's something that you can find about yourself who you told other people about you. And how is one's own story being told? MyFabula is about to change all that. How is story being told? Number one, verbally, story being passed from one generation to another sometime, or by one person to another verbally. I mean, we live in Australia, and one of the oldest culture in the world, 50,000 years. And the way they pass on their history is only through two things: verbal communication and artwork. So they communicate for 50,000 years about who they are, where they're from. The rainbow serpent story is passed on not in any written form, but by words from one generation to the next. So obviously we communicate verbally. Everybody understands that, so that we can tell our story verbally. We also tell our story by having it written down, or in these days you type it. Okay, that's another way to tell a story. In the past, we write diary. Most people write diaries in those days, but how many people actually write diary today? If you still write diary, can you put up your hand? Do you still write diary? Well, 1, 2, 3, a very handful. Out of a room of so many people, only 2 or 3 write diaries. Good on you, actually. In recent years, other ways of telling your story, right? YouTube, Facebook, social media allows you not only tell your story in written form, but also in voice form and also in MP4, video forms. And there are some of the methodologies we can tell our own story. But there are problems. So what are the problems? It's a little bit hard to tell your story verbally when you're dead. Usually dead people don't communicate, well, most people don't. It's a bit hard. And secondly, even if you have a diary, unless you publish that diary, unless you distributed that diary widely and everybody wants to buy your story for whatever reason that is, you have a very limited distributions. Only a handful of people have your diary. A famous diary was written 50, 100 years ago, maybe 150 years ago. Only a few libraries in the world would have a copy of the diary. Over time, your own story, even in written form, disappear. How long do they last? 50 years, 100 years, 200 years? That's the time span on your diary, even if it's written down, let alone verbal. Third-party restriction, what's that? Who's going to stop you from writing your diary? Who's going to stop you from telling your story? Well, let me tell you an example, then you will know. Notice this man? Julian Assange, I'm not here to debate whether you agree with him releasing the information he took it from somebody else. I'm not here to do that. Some people are passionately believe that he shouldn't be doing that. He broke the law, and somebody passionately would defend him and said that he's done the right thing. It's called freedom of speech. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about what is the truth here, is that he's an Australian. For the last 10 years or so, a whole decade, he's been hounded by another government, not the government of his country. Another government hounded him 10 years and non-stop. He's about to be extradited to that country, and most people believe that he will die in the country. So he released information. He tells the story he wants to tell other people. For whatever reason he did that, he's being tried to stop by another person. MyFabula is a Latin word meaning story, drama, tale, and even fables. MyFabula, my story, telling it my way, is now made possible by BSV blockchain, decentralized storage, and AI. Let me explain. It enables, using MyFabula, enables you to exhibit things that you want people to know. It could be just you're posting about being here at the blockchain conference today. That's okay. You could be a hidden writer. You've been writing about something. So you want somebody to actually share and read your writing. You could be a dancer. So you want to show people you actually know how to dance. Maybe you are a singer. Most people don't know I'm an engineer by trade and a project manager, but actually a singer, only in the bathroom. Only in the bathroom. And you have to buy good tickets to come and see that. Very exclusive. You could be a song composer. You compose songs. You want to put it up for exhibitions, for people to share and to enjoy. So our platform also provides security, of course, being blockchain. One of the cornerstone of the benefit of blockchain is to provide that security, which I'm sure that Julian Assange would appreciate. We can time the release of your information. You, in fact, even though we know you as an accountant, in fact, you work for the CIA. And you got story to tell, man. Maybe you actually happen to know who killed JFK. You have data and information you want to share, but not when you're still around because you get kicked around, chased around by another government for another 10 years. So you time the release of that document. Being blockchain again, proof of original is important. So I don't need to talk to you about that. Everyone around in this room understand the importance of that. Also, it's unalterable. It cannot be changed. All right? That's one of the benefits, again, of blockchain. So this is how our ecosystem works. Just a rough idea. The first stage of our ecosystem, obviously, is a user interface. So obviously, we're going to use a laptop. You can get access to our interface with a laptop, or you can use a mobile phone. That's pretty straightforward. And what you can upload images. You can upload text. You just written a poet. You can upload that. You can simply recording your voice. I just had a terrible argument with my daughter. I am so angry. Why couldn't he understand this? I've been looking after her for the last 24 years, and this is what she's done to me. Or, I just got this fantastic gift from my wife or from my girlfriend, hopefully not at the same time. You can just record that and just store that. Video. My MP4, happy birthday, marriage, car accident. That too. Voice to text. Yeah, the technology is very simple now to just record and turn it into a text. So all that go into a metaverse. MyFabula metaverse, where we have 4 chambers, if I can use the word loosely, 4 chambers for your purpose. The first one is the auditorium. What is auditorium for? For performance. So you have done a painting, or you have a poet, or you simply just want to share your experience. You went to a fantastic restaurant, and the waitress looked gorgeous. Not so much about the food. So you can share all that, all right? So you want people to know it's no different to Facebook, basically, all right? So this is where you share your stuff. You want people to see and read. The second thing is called a library. It's a fancy word for a storeroom. Things that you actually do not know how to deal with it yet, you put it there first, all right? You just simply upload it and put it there, okay? You don't have to physically upload. At least the blockchain code is being uploaded, okay? The third place is a vault. Things you put in there that nobody should look at until you're ready. It could be your will. It could be photographs of certain thing. It could be information of certain thing. It could be some private information about yourselves. Things that you want to tell people, you could not. It's in the vault. And you can time the release of that information. The last thing is a memorial hall. This is obviously after you are no longer living. That you want certain information from all the other chambers to be moved to the memorial hall, so that people after you, if they're interested in you, it could be your relatives, could be your offspring, could be people, your grandchildren, all right? Things like in the metaverse will stay there for hundreds of years. So it is up to you what you want people to remember you by. This is our first stage. Our second stage is back-end integration with other social media. Okay, Facebook and Twitter, obviously they might not want to, but this is our intention. Okay. And our third stage is the most interesting one, which I'm not going to talk about yet, until another 3 minutes later. This is our timeline, stage 1A, user interface. We're going to get it done by end of this year. The second stage stage 1B, the releasing of some NFT, purely to try to generate interest of our project. So stage 2 is linked with other social media application, is Q3 next year. And then stage 3A is the beta version of Virtual Me, and I'll talk about Virtual Me in a minute. Okay. So third stage. What is our third stage? Let me ask you a question. Think of a person who is no longer around, meaning he's already dead or she already dead. Name a person who is already dead that you would do almost anything to have a cup of coffee with. There has to be that person. It could be your mom, it could be your dad. If you are religious, you probably want to have a cup of coffee with Jesus or Apostle Paul. If you are John Lennon lover, you want to have a cuppa with John Lennon. Think of this person. What happened if you could? What happened if you could? Anyone who was born 10 years ago until the end time would have a digital footprint of their life. The first few years of their life, the digital footprints produced by their parents. The moment they have their own social media account, whatever account, or their homework digitally submitted to the school, they have a digital footprint. And if they live for 60, 70, 80, 100 years, if we gather all that information, and even after that person is gone, we can create a virtual me. Let me show you two news article, and I got another 2 minutes to finish. An AI created song for deceased artists like Kurt Cobain and Amy Winehouse. They have created music from the information they gather from Amy Winehouse. Artificial intelligence recreate voice of the deceased singer. A Korean AI company studied the voice of a singer. He was dead 25 years ago. He was a hugely popular singer. So study his voice pattern enables them to create a song he's never sung before in his voice. It is possible. So in times to come, I would have AI able to help you to retain your story forever. Imagine your granddaughter able to ask you, say, "Grandmom, I'm struggling with this issue, what's your opinion?" And based on your digital footprint, AI should be able to say that, well, say for example, your granddaughter wanted to struggle with a life issue like euthanasia. Should I support euthanasia? Grandmom, what do you think? And it just happened that your grandmother has posted 3 articles about that, or talk about that in social media or whatever. So therefore, AI will say that I totally object to that. And AI will be able to tell you that there is a 98% accuracy rate. Or something that your grandma's never talked about. But based on other things, they can analyze it and say, well, your grandma will probably return the question in the affirmative for about 62%. It is all doable. But 2 things needed. Number 1, technology, and it's there. We are halfway there. But even if you have the technology, you need one thing. What is that? Precisely, the data. We are going to collect that data. The 3rd stage is virtual me. My time is up. I want to finish with where I started. What's your story? Can your story be told on a plaque like that? Would you want your whole life to be summarized on a plaque like that? And I tell you no. Absolutely not. MyFabula, your story, telling it your way forever. Thank you very much.